Hi everybody, I hope this video finds you well. In today's video, I will be introducing our class, Math 270, and going over the syllabus for our course. Let me start by saying a little bit about the structure of our class. Our class will be taught in what is called an asynchronous manner. This means that there will be no mandatory meeting times during the semester, and all content will be delivered to you via lecture videos on YouTube. We will also be making a lot of use of our Canvas page. On our Canvas page, you will find all the files you need for our class, announcements, discussion boards, and your grades. You will also be submitting all of your assignments via Canvas. So, with all that being said, what is Math 270 really all about? Well, it is a unique class since it's actually a combination of two distinct branches of advanced mathematics: differential equations and linear algebra. Differential equations is a natural extension of your study of calculus and investigates how to solve equations that involve derivatives of different orders. This is an important question since many natural phenomena are expressed and understood in terms of rates of change, exactly what we know the derivative represents. Differential equations are used heavily in physics, engineering, and other STEM fields. Linear algebra, on the other hand, is a bit more abstract and is really the study of mathematical structures, including spaces, operations, and transformations. Linear algebra is an important building block for further studies in mathematics, but is also frequently applied in computer science. We will study both of these branches in our class, starting with 4 weeks of differential equations, then 8 weeks of linear algebra, and finally 4 more weeks of differential equations. Now that we've talked about a brief overview of the content of our class, let's dive into the main part of the syllabus, starting with an introduction. My name is Ben Mitchell, and I'll be your instructor for the next 16 weeks for our class. The first thing I want to call your attention to on our syllabus are the contact methods and contact information. Since this class is completely online, I want to make sure you all know the different ways you have of reaching out and asking questions in this class. For our course, you will have 3 main ways of reaching out to me. First, you can always send me direct emails at bmitchell@elcamino.edu. Second, we have weekly office hours. Some of these office hours are held through Zoom, and some, since we're returning to campus this semester, are held at the office. Those times are listed here at the top of your syllabus and are also listed on the front page of Canvas. You'll notice that there are 3 dedicated hours via Zoom, so if you're unable to come into campus, there'll still be plenty of time to hop on and ask questions. There are also, though, 2 times on campus. If you are able to make it to campus and you prefer to ask questions in person, those times are also available to you. The third and final way that we have of reaching out and asking questions is that we will have Canvas discussion boards for each major set of practice exercises, review guides, and take-home assignments. My general recommendation is that you send personal or sort of grade-related questions via email. You ask in-depth content questions during the office hours, and you ask sort of quicker content questions via the discussion boards. That's my general recommendation of how I think those modes of communication work the best, but you should feel free to utilize all of these methods of communication in whatever way works best for you. The most important thing in an online class is to be proactive with your communication. If you have questions at any time about any aspect of our class, always reach out right away. All right, with all those things sort of said, let's actually go through bit by bit of our syllabus here. So on the top here, of course, we just have all the key information. This is Math 270, section 0954. Like I said, my name is Ben Mitchell, and I'll be your instructor for the next 16 weeks. We have our office hours listed here. Again, since this is our first semester transitioning back to on-campus learning as well as still having online learning, the office hours are a mixture of office hours that are held at my office, MBA 247, and some that are held via Zoom. You guys are welcome to attend as many or as few of these as you would like. You're welcome to just use the online ones. You're welcome to use whatever combination suits you. For the online office hours, they are held via Zoom. You guys will receive a link to the Zoom office hours each morning of those office hours, reminding you that those office hours are coming up and also giving you the link that you'll need to access those office hours. For all of these office hours, both the in-person ones and the ones via Zoom, they are drop-in office hours. So feel free to drop in at any time during the scheduled hour that they're held for. Ask whatever questions you might have, and then hop off once you're all good. You're not required to be there at the start and stay all the way to the end or anything like that. They're for your benefit. So drop in, ask whatever questions you might have, and then if you've got everything answered, head on out. I also already mentioned this, but my email is bmitchell@elcamino.edu. Certainly always feel free to send direct emails. Since this is an online course, right, I'll be checking email pretty frequently, and so you should get a pretty fast response there. In terms of what you need for this class, the prerequisite is that you've successfully passed Math 220, which is our multivariable calculus course. In terms of what you really need for Math 270, you actually need more stuff from some of the earlier calculus courses than you really need from Math 220. We're going to be doing a lot of stuff with derivatives and integrals. You want to make sure that those two computational skills are strong. And in terms of stuff directly from 220, there will be some stuff about like vectors and understanding some of the sort of multivariable derivatives and things like that. So it's a good idea maybe to brush up on those, but of course we'll sort of mention them as they come up in our course. For derivatives and integrals, which like I said are the two main computational things we need, you will find on Canvas some practice problems to help you sort of review those things, and there is a calculus review video on our YouTube playlist, so you can watch that as well if you just want to brush up on what you need from 190 and 191 for this course. Speaking of things that you need for this course, right, let's talk a little bit about the required materials. The textbook for this course is Differential Equations in Linear Algebra, the 4th edition by Good and Annan. It is very, very important to have this textbook for our class. It doesn't matter the format, so I believe this textbook can be found in hardcover, softcover, as well as like a PDF version. Doesn't matter what format you have. What is important is that you have the 4th edition of this textbook. The reason that this textbook is useful for our class is really twofold. First, I do select practice exercises from the textbook that I recommend that you try to make sure that you're understanding the materials as we're presenting them. So that's one of the uses of this textbook, is that it is a repository of a bunch of practice problems. And the second thing that I recommend is that since this is a advanced mathematics course, I mean, this is the highest level of mathematics that we offer at El Camino, one of the skills that we're trying to develop is not only the content of differential equations and linear algebra, but we're also really trying to develop that ability to read and understand advanced mathematics. And so this textbook, the reason I've picked it and the reason I like to use it is I think it's a good bridge. It's written in a pretty reasonable manner. I think it's understandable, but it does talk about a lot of conceptual and theoretical topics. So actually reading the sections in conjunction with the lecture videos, I think is very beneficial. It also helps because while there's a lot of theorems in this class, which means there's a lot of proofs, sometimes the way I prove something in the lecture video is a bit different than how the textbook proves it. So it's advantageous to be able to see those alternate proofs, those alternate ways of sort of writing up proofs, so that you get more development and more practice with the concept of a mathematical proof. So very, very important to have this textbook, right? Got to make sure it's the 4th edition there. That's pretty much the only thing you need for this class, other than, online access. You don't need any sort of bundle with this textbook. You just need the textbook itself. As you can see here, a calculator is permitted on the exams, but it's not required. To be honest, there's very little arithmetic sort of computations here, so you're really not going to find any instances that you need a calculator. But if you have one, you want to use it, you're welcome to do so. So in terms of required materials there, like I said, you'll definitely need online access, right? You'll need to have access to our Canvas page, to our YouTube playlist with all of our lecture videos and everything like that. You'll need this textbook, and that is about it. All right, so with all that being said, that pretty much takes care of the first page of our syllabus. So let's move on to the second one. The second page of the syllabus is a big list of course objectives and a big list of student learning outcomes. We're not going to talk too much about these right now. A lot of this stuff probably isn't going to mean too much until we actually go through and learn about these things. The only thing that I might say is that sometimes it can be a nice satisfying feeling midway through the course, at the end of the course, to go back through, look at this giant list of things, and something that might not make a lot of sense right now, you're going to read through and be like, oh, I really do know how to do all these things. And that can be a nice sense of accomplishment midway through the course or at the end of the class. But for now, let's go ahead and move to the third page of our syllabus here. This one goes over how you are assessed and how grades are determined in this class. So for you guys, there are 4 categories of assignments, and they each get a weighted percentage. So while individual assignments have points, the overall points don't determine your grade. It's the weighted percentage of the categories. Weighted percentages, I know sometimes can be a little complicated as a grading scheme. The great thing, though, is that since we are using Canvas to keep track of your grades, Canvas has a built-in ability to work with weighted percentages. So the grade that you're seeing on Canvas throughout the semester is the grade that you have in the class. So you have a very accurate picture of how you're doing in the class at any time. So let's talk about what those 4 categories are. Throughout the term, you guys will have 4 quizzes, 3 midterms, 3 what we call take-home exams, and a comprehensive final. The breakdown is that the 4 quizzes will make up 20% of your overall grade, the 3 midterms will make up 30%, the 3 take-home exams will make up 30%, and your comprehensive final will make up the last 20%. The grading scale overall is very straightforward. El Camino doesn't offer pluses and minuses, so your ending letter grade will either be an A, B, C, D, or F based on these percentage categories there. All right, with that being said, let's talk about the actual categories themselves. So the first category are quizzes. There are only 4 quizzes during the term. These quizzes are open for discussion, so you can certainly discuss with each other. In fact, it's encouraged. You can ask me questions about it, and again, that's encouraged. There will be a discussion board on Canvas for each quiz, so we even have a centralized place for you guys to put out those questions. These quizzes, right, while they are graded, are really there to make sure that you're understanding the concepts that we're going over. One thing to keep in mind, though, is that while you may discuss and work with each other on the quizzes, you will need to submit your own work. So feel free to discuss it, but when you turn in your actual assignment, everybody is turning in their own work there. The quiz due dates are already preset. They will be due on the Fridays of weeks 3, 7, 11, and 15, and they are due by 11:59 p.m., so the end of the day on those Fridays. Just like everything in our class, I'm going to say this several times over the next few moments as we go through each of these categories, but quizzes are submitted electronically via Canvas and must be submitted as a single PDF file. Hopefully at this point, you've had a couple years of these online classes and you're comfortable submitting assignments. If you haven't, or if you want to make sure you're doing it the way that we sort of want in this class, there is a file on our Canvas page called the Electronic Submission Guidelines that goes over what's expected of an electronic submission and goes through several ways that you can build that submission. To be honest, the 2 main ways that I recommend are either doing your work by hand like normal and then scanning that into a PDF, or if you have a tablet or something like that, you can use a note-taking app and just do your work directly and then export it as a PDF and submit that. Really, the only requirement, again, for our electronic submissions is that the file you submit has all your work, it's clear, and it's a single PDF file. Keep in mind that submissions that are late or in an incorrect format can be penalized. And again, the details about electronic submissions can be found on Canvas. So that if you ever need to reference it, you can always reach out and ask me about it, or you can look at that document that walks you through what are the guidelines for electronic submissions. All right, so 4 quizzes during the term, due on the Fridays of weeks 3, 7, 11, and 15. All right, let's talk about the next category, midterms. Midterm dates are also preset. I'm letting you guys know about all these things in advance so that you can plan out your schedule. I know that you probably have other classes and other responsibilities, so I want you to know all of the important dates of our class way in advance so you can plan around that. That also means that part of the thing you should be doing at the beginning of our semester is planning out, right? If you know that you work on Fridays, it's probably now time to think about either moving your schedule, getting somebody to cover on those days, because Fridays, weeks 4, 8, and 12 are going to be exam days, and you're going to need to be free for those days. Midterms are made available at 9 a.m. and are due by 5 p.m. the same day. So our midterms, you have an 8-hour window to complete them. The exams do not take 8 hours. And the exams are written to take about 2 to 3 hours, but you are allowed the entire 8-hour window if you want. So that means that if you choose to, you can work from 9 a.m. all the way till 5 p.m. To complete the exams. Again, not going to be necessary if you prepare adequately. But again, it's up to you guys. I want you to have that flexibility. In terms of policies for the midterms, you're allowed access to your notes. They are open course material exams. And that's true of everything we do in this class. Everything we do in this class is open course material. And what that means is that while you're working on any of the assignments, quizzes, midterms, take-home exams, the final, whatever, you're always allowed to look at our lecture videos, look at any of the sort of practice exercises or notes that we've posted on Canvas, always allowed to look through your textbook. Any of the things that we've provided as course materials, you're always allowed to look at and use while completing assignments. What you're not allowed to use or do during midterms are discuss or work on the midterms with anyone else. So that's one of the fundamental differences between the quizzes and midterms. Quizzes are open for discussion, midterms are not. And you're certainly not allowed to discuss or work on midterms with any individuals outside of our class or use any outside resources, right? So again, the limitation on resources is it must be a course material. Midterms, just like the quizzes, will be submitted electronically via Canvas, and again, must be submitted as that single PDF file. You'll notice here, no makeup exams are given. That's why these dates are being told to you far in advance, so that you know when these exams are occurring and can plan accordingly. If an emergency comes up or something happens or simply one of the exams does not go as well as you were hoping, well, we do have a system in place for that. One of the exam scores can be replaced by the final exam score if the final exam score is higher. So this policy is in place for two reasons. First, like I said, if an emergency does come up and you're just simply unable to take one of these exams because of an emergency, then your final exam will replace that missing exam. Even if you do take all 3 midterms, but one of them just simply doesn't go as well as you were hoping, then we will also use the final exam score to replace your lowest midterm. This policy is also only there to benefit you guys, meaning that if your final exam is actually the lowest of all your midterms, then we won't replace any of the midterms. You'll just keep all your midterm scores and keep your final just as your final. All right. Next, and the name might be a little bit misleading because, well, what's the difference between take-home exams and midterms since you're in an online class and everything's done at home? Well, the difference is that these midterms, as we mentioned, are done in a relatively small window, right? An 8-hour window, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. The take-home exams are a little bit different. They follow each of the midterms, so they're associated with sort of each of the midterms. The take-home exams, their due dates are already known in advance. They're the Fridays of weeks 6, 10, and 14. So you'll notice they always occur 2 weeks after. They're due 2 weeks after their corresponding midterm. Each take-home exam, just like a quiz, is due by 11:59 p.m. So it's due at the end of that night. Just like quizzes, the take-home exams are actually open for discussion. So the difference between the midterms and the take-home exams is that midterms are closed for discussion, take-home exams are open for discussion. Just like with the quizzes, you do need to submit your own work. Also, just like everything in our class, right, it cannot be discussed with individuals outside of our class or using outside resources there. Take-home exams will be submitted electronically via Canvas and have that same policy as a single PDF file. So you might be asking, why do we have both midterms and take-home exams? Well, the point is that these midterms, these generally focus on the sort of main mechanical or sort of main skills that you need to develop in each section of our course, whereas these take-home exams really focus on a lot of the conceptual stuff where it's really not appropriate to ask you to do it in a short span of time. It's something where you'll want to take some time to think about it, to try things out, to really develop your logic before committing to a final answer. So these guys are a bit more computational in nature. These guys are a bit more conceptual in nature. And that's just sort of the style of our course, because we are doing some important computational work in this class, but we're also doing a lot of important conceptual work. All right, and the final category is your final exam, appropriately enough. The final exam is a comprehensive exam. The midterms just go over what we've learned since the previous midterm. So, for example, in midterm 1, you'll just be tested on the things from weeks 1 to 4. In midterm 2, it'll just be the stuff from weeks 5 through 8. Midterm 3, weeks 9 through 12, so on. For the final exam, though, even though it comes at the very end of class, it is on the last day of our class, which is Thursday, June 9th, it is a comprehensive or cumulative final exam. So it'll cover everything from the very start of our class to the very end of our class. Final exam is sort of similar to the midterms, though it's a little bit longer. It's made available at 9 a.m. and then is due by 9 p.m. So it's got about a 12-hour window. Again, it's not written to take you 12 hours. It's written to take you about 3 to 4 hours. But again, you're welcome to use as much of that 12-hour window as you would like. Just like everything else in our class, it is open course material, so you're allowed to access your notes for the final exam. You're not allowed for the final exam to discuss it with other students or any outside individuals or use any outside resources. Final exam is submitted electronically via Canvas. Same idea, must be a single PDF file. All right, so in summary, we've got 4 categories of assignments. You've got your 4 quizzes, 3 midterms, 3 take-home exams, and 1 final exam. Anytime that you have questions about any of the stuff about the structure of our class, because I know that was a lot of information we just presented there, always feel free to reach out and ask questions about that. You know, you're not restricted to only sending questions that are about the content. You can always ask about the structure of our class or how to submit things or the expectations or anything like that. So always feel free to reach out. In fact, there will be on Canvas throughout the entirety of our course a discussion board just simply called General Course Questions. So if at any time you're unsure about something, about the sort of structure, the logistics, anything like that, pop a question on that General Course Questions board and I will make sure to answer it as soon as possible. All right, with all that being said, let's move on from page 3 and talk about some general requirements and important dates. So first of all, this has probably been hinted at, but it's time to actually just say it directly, right? Like we mentioned, it is an asynchronous class here. So all of the material you guys are getting is presented through recorded videos posted on YouTube. So all of our lecture materials are posted or are presented through videos posted on YouTube. All the videos necessary for your class will be found on a playlist entitled Math 270 Spring 2022. This YouTube playlist, you'll get the link to it in our welcome email, which probably, when you're watching this video, you'll have already seen. The link to this playlist is also on the front page of our Canvas site, so it should be very easy to sort of find. I'll generally update you guys about what videos have been posted and also provide you a schedule for what you should watch. I want to say 2 things about that. First of all, in terms of how I like to release our materials, I generally release all the materials in batches that give you everything you need for the upcoming exam. So when the course begins in a few days after you're watching this, I'll be posting everything necessary for exam 1. And then when exam 1 wraps up, I'll post up everything you need for exam 2. And when I say everything, that means the lecture videos, the practice problems, and all the different sort of materials you need there. So we generally sort of treat our class as being in these quarters of 4 weeks at a time. The second thing I want to mention is the schedule. You guys will get a weekly schedule posted at the start of the week on Monday that'll sort of run you through the important dates that are coming up, if there's any assignments that are coming due, a schedule to keep you on pace for the videos themselves. And again, since this is an asynchronous class, it's your choice when to sort of do those things, but I would generally recommend trying to stick at least as close as possible to those weekly schedules, just so things don't pile up. All of you have taken a lot of math courses at this point, if you've reached Math 270, so you know that mathematics is a subject that builds on itself. So it's very important to have solid understandings of early concepts, to have solid understandings of later ones. So letting things build up and then trying to rush through can be very challenging, because even though you might rush through successfully the early videos and have some understanding, that limited understanding is then going to be very challenging for later concepts. So I would recommend trying to stick to those schedules as much as possible. When I post those schedules, not only do they contain like what lecture videos you should be watching, but other associated materials. So that means what sections from the textbook, as well as suggested exercises that are for practice. These suggested exercises are a mixture of problems selected from your textbook. You'll remember that when I mentioned the textbook, I said one of its purposes is to provide these practice problems. So I have a list of selected ones that I would recommend trying. I've also written some myself for you guys so that you get used to the style in which I write questions. So along in each weekly schedule, not only will it say what lecture videos you should be watching, but it'll also say which practice problems you should be trying. It's highly recommended that you do as many of these problems as possible to make sure you're comfortable with the topics and concepts presented. As you guys know, a lot of times in mathematics, something that sounds pretty reasonable, a theorem or an application, a lot of times it might sound nice when you're listening to it, but then when you actually start to try it, it involves a bit more. So it's really important to try as many of these practice ones as possible to make sure you really understand the process that's being sort of shown in each video or in each topic. So that's the sort of main stuff about how you guys get your content. It's all found on our playlist hosted through YouTube, and then you get these weekly schedules that'll sort of guide you through what you should be completing each week. Again, if you ever have questions about that, always feel free to reach out and ask about it. In terms of documents, I think I've already mentioned this, but all the documents necessary for our class are found on our Canvas site. So those are the suggested exercises, your quizzes, the review guides, any other supplemental materials. Remember, Canvas is also used to keep track of your grades, and also those weekly schedules are found in the announcement section of Canvas. Also, Canvas hosts all those discussion boards as well. All right, third sort of just general requirement to remember, all the assignments are submitted electronically via Canvas, so you submit your quizzes and your exams all through Canvas. If you ever have questions about how to do that submission, you can reach out to me, or you can look at the electronic submissions guidelines document that's found on Canvas as well. All right, this right here is just a recap from the very beginning about the different ways to reach out and ask questions. Remember, there are online office hours through Zoom, as well as some on-campus ones if you happen to already be on campus. But we have these weekly office hours. We also have the Canvas discussion boards for each major set of exercises, each quiz, each take-home exam. So you can always feel free to post to those discussion boards. I check those discussion boards regularly, so if you post something on there, I'll make sure to answer it as soon as I can. And then again, I'm always available directly through email at bmitchell@elcamino.edu. The only reason that I really mention and sort of really press these Canvas discussion boards is they're very, very beneficial for two reasons in our class. First, when you post something to the discussion board, as opposed to just directly emailing, everybody gets to benefit from that. So if you're unsure about a particular question or a topic and you post it to the discussion board, not only are you benefiting from the response and the back and forth, but so is everybody else in the class, right? It really gives a better learning environment for everyone. So that's a huge advantage of the discussion boards over just direct email. The second thing is, selfishly for me, when you guys ask questions through the discussion board, Canvas has a built-in mathematics editor, so it's very easy for me to type out expressions and equations in my explanation, so it'll look really nice for you when you get your response. If you send a direct email, I have to just type it out in the email editor. There's not a nice equation editor there, so it can be a little bit messier. It's a little harder to type out all the mathematics there. But again, always use the method of communication that you feel comfortable with. It's most important that you reach out and ask questions whenever you have them. All right. Couple of important dates. These are also listed on the front page of our Canvas site, but I'll just mention them here. There's the last day to drop the course without any sort of notation on your record, and you get a full refund. That is the end of week 2, so that is for us, Sunday, February 27th. That is basically your chance if you sort of realize that this asynchronous online format just doesn't work for you for this course. If you drop by then, there'll be no notation. You'll get a refund. Everything's good there. And then, of course, the second withdrawal deadline, which is way, way down there. It's at the end of week 12. That's if perhaps you're unhappy with how your grade is sort of coming out in the course and you want to maybe avoid a failing grade. You can withdraw from the course and receive a W as long as you do that by Friday, May 13th. And the good thing there is that actually corresponds with the date of our third midterm. So by that time that second withdrawal deadline is coming up, you'll have basically done all of your midterm exams, 3 of your 4 take-home quizzes, 2 of your 3 take-home exams. You'll have done a large portion of the work for the class, so you'll have a very good sense of where you stand overall. One thing to just keep in mind, you guys probably all know this now after having done a couple years of online courses, but keep in mind that if you do want to drop a course, right, since we don't have like an attendance, we're not going into the classroom, make sure you go ahead and process that withdrawal yourself, right? There's not really a good way for me to monitor if you're not attending and then not just planning on having me drop you. So make sure that you go ahead and withdraw from the course. Finally, and again, this should be pretty clear after having taken probably a bunch of online courses, but make sure you're paying attention to all the announcements that are issued electronically. That could be through your email, also through Canvas. Like I said, I use the announcements feature of Canvas to have a place for those weekly schedules. I will also generally try to send out through Canvas announcements like, oh, this grade has been posted, or this review guide is up for an exam or something like that. So to let you know about things as they're updated, but make sure you're sort of checking those things regularly to make sure you're aware of all the things happening in our course. All right, last thing on this page is just some cornerstones to success. These are just general recommendations to doing well in this course overall. A lot of these I think apply in probably most classes, but I just want to say a few things here about our class in particular. So of course, keeping up with the material, as we mentioned, with an asynchronous class, it's easy to let things pile up, but it's very important to stay on top of things here. So make sure to use those weekly schedules and try to stay as close to them as possible. Remember also, the course is not just watching the lecture videos, it's also reading the corresponding sections in the textbook and trying as many of the associated exercises as possible. One thing I want to mention here too is it's also part of this is making sure that you're sort of smart about doing those exercises. If there's a section where you're going through the exercises and you're finding everything straightforward and you're confident about that topic, don't waste a lot of time doing every exercise from that section that might be recommended. If you feel comfortable with it, it's probably best to apply your time and effort on another section, right? You want to make sure that your study time and your work is done efficiently. So that's a lot of like sort of self-diagnosis, making sure, oh, this is a section I need more practice on, this is a section I'm comfortable with, and making sure you do that appropriately. Taking good notes. That's very important in this class because everything is open course material, so you're allowed access to your notes and your materials. Being an online class, what good notes are can be a little different. Since you can go back and rewatch the lecture videos, you probably don't have to take as extensive of notes of the material itself, but you probably want to take a lot of notes about where important examples or where important theorems are located, so that when you do go back to reference those videos, you don't have to watch through all the videos and try to like tab through them trying to find something important. You know the timestamp and the video that there's something important. So if you want to make notes about that sort of thing, I think that's really beneficial. Being well organized is going to make the class a lot easier. And that's just because there are a lot of materials here, lecture videos, the textbook, the exercises, the practice problems, the review guides. There's a lot of things. So being organized is going to make those things, instead of you having to work on them, they'll work for you and help you do well in the class overall. In sort of third cornerstone here, right? Making sure you study adequately before the exams. This is just something to remind you that in this course, we actually don't have a lot of graded assessments. You only have 4 quizzes, 3 midterms, 3 take-home exams, and a final, right? So what is that? That's like 11 assignments throughout the entire term. So they're all very, very important. So you want to make sure you study adequately before each of them and really do your best on each one here. For exams in particular, we have, I provide you guys with review guides that sort of give you a chance to see the style that I write questions in and also the level that you might be encountering on the exams. So it's very important to work through those thoroughly and certainly ask about anything that is on there that's not clear. And that can be as much as being like, oh, I don't understand this problem at all. Or it could even be, I understood how to do this problem, but can we see some variations on it? Or can I just, I wasn't sure about this one step, right? You want to make sure that on those review guides, every part of the question is something you're comfortable with. And then finally, making use of resources, right? We have office hours each week. We have the Canvas discussion boards, your textbook, and of course, other students in the class. I know that it's an online class, so it's more difficult to sort of engage with each other. But, in the past, I've had students form, little online study groups, message each other, things like that. I think that can be very beneficial. Mathematics often gets the reputation that it is a sort of solo type discipline, but really, especially as you move into more conceptual stuff like this course does, it benefits from discussion. It benefits from seeing multiple points of view, multiple different paths to the same sort of destination. So I think it's really beneficial to find some ways to discuss and engage with this class. Also keep in mind with everything, being proactive is the real key here. The sooner you reach out, the sooner you engage with stuff, the better the course is going to go. All right. With all that said, let's go ahead and move on to the next page of our syllabus. Just two small sort of disclaimers here that I should mention. First, academic honesty. One thing I just want to mention here is, again, what does academic honesty mean in our class, right? Well, for you guys, since you have access to your notes and other course materials for your assignments, you're not having to worry about, am I allowed to look at this lecture video or open my textbook or anything like that, right? That's all always permitted for any of the assignments we're doing. What's really important in this class is that the work you turn in is your own, right? So that means that any evidence that the submitted work comes from an outside source, including using methods or approaches not covered in our class, that can result in a failing grade on that assignment. And that is really, really important here because while this is an advanced course, it is still an introduction to differential equations and an introduction to linear algebra. So there are methods out there that are a bit more advanced and can do some of the things that we're doing in this class in different ways. However, if we're not covering them in our class, you don't want to be using them, right? Because that's an outside source. You want to be using the approaches and things that we're covering because we're covering them from a ground up perspective, right? We're trying to build the framework of differential equations and linear algebra so that if you do take later classes, like a full class in differential equations or a full class in linear algebra, you can see those advanced methods later on, but use the ones that but based on the ones that we've presented in our class. So just be very careful about using any sort of outside materials. You want to stick to the ones that we are presenting in our class. And then, of course, our Students with Special Needs ADA statement. Keep in mind that El Camino is committed to providing educational accommodations for students with disabilities. So this means that if you do have any accommodations through the SRC, please let me know about them as soon as possible. But I think that this statement also just applies across the board, and it's something very important to me. Math 270 is a really interesting, really exciting course. It's really the finale of your guys' mathematical career, at least at El Camino. So I want to make sure that it's as beneficial of a class as possible for all of you. Like I said, I mean, it's two distinct disciplines, and both of which are foundations for higher mathematics. So there's a lot of things to gain from this class. So I want to make sure that everybody does gain things. So if there's any sort of things that you would like to see, or anything I can do to sort of provide you with a better experience, please reach out to me, let me know, and I'll do my best to accommodate you with that. That also just sort of reminds you guys that this really is your course, right? This is for your benefit, your development. And so the more you can engage with that, and the better and more positive the learning environment is going to be. Even though it's an online class, reaching out, being proactive with hopping on office hours or the discussion boards or emailing, right, can do that same thing just like it would if we were meeting in person. So with those things mentioned, we've got our very last page of our syllabus. This is just a quick summary, again, of all the important dates. When are all the quizzes due? When are all the midterms occurring? When are all the take-home exams due? When is the final exam? So everything is listed there. This exact same schedule is also posted on the front page of our Canvas site. So you can always reference this very easily. As these dates come up, you'll also see them listed and reminded to you via those weekly schedules. So with all that being said, I know that was a lot of information, but thanks for listening. Welcome to the class. I'm really excited to work with all of you, and I think it's going to be a great 16-week spring semester. So again, welcome to the class, and let's get started.